Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hari ini kita akan belajar tentang topik 1 yang kita tak cover lagi, yang kita namakan sebagai Introduction to Business Communication. Untuk pengetahuan semua, Introduction to Business Communication ni merupakan subjek yang topik yang masuk dalam final examination. Dalam topik ini, kita akan membicarakan tentang Introduction to Business Communication, the definition of communication, communication process and cycle, importance of communication, definition of business communication importance and also example, what is the types of communication, what are the barriers of communication and also principles of effective communication. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, untuk kali ini, kalau you tengok nota you pun ada, kita membicarakan tentang nota-nota ini juga dibekalkan. Okey, kita pergi yang pertama. Apakah definition of communication? Definition of communication is, in general, communication is the process where we share our thoughts, our emotion and ideas to one or more. Itu communication. Bermaksud secara umumnya kita percaya communication ini satu proses di mana kita berkongsi kita punya pemikiran, kita punya emosi dan kita punya idea. Tapi some people said by different authors, communication is the transfer of learning, understanding and realization from one person to another person or among person. It means that in a complex word, it means that it's a transfer of learning, our understanding and realization from one person to another person. So some scholars say that communication is an exchange of facts, idea, opinions or emotion by two or more person. Okay, itu bahasa yang kita mudah faham lah kan. Okay, now we move on to next one. Apa perlunya, what is the importance of communication? Kenapa perlunya kita berkomunikasi? Banyak sebab lah, because once you not communicate, everything tidak akan berlaku. Okay, man, woman, people is a person, and communication brings people together to build a society. And communication is the basic and essential elements to survive in a society. Communication also helps to create good culture. Communication also is a basic tool for supervision. Communication is as element important for encouragement or an inspiration. Communication plays a very important role in our day-to-day activities, and communication also maintains good human relation. Okay, next. Okay, sebelum ni, before this, I dah sebut tentang proses communication. Bila kita sebut tentang proses communication, yang you boleh google pun dalam internet, the communication process ni, the process of communication take place with the following elements, and also we call it sender, the message, the channel. Okay, number 1, it must come from the sender. Sender is a person who gets the idea or information of the communication topic, and they send and they convey the information is known as a sender. Sender is initiate the process of communication. For example, teachers in the classroom, me as a sender, I'm sending the information, the ideas to you in the class. So I am the sender, alright? So the sender initiate the process of communication. Encoding is a process which the sender send the information is understandable and simple form. So sender is also called as encoder. It means that I will try my best to put the information that you can understand. I'm using the language, the sentence that I believe you can understand. Then it is come with message. To start the communication, sender have some ideas, thoughts or information in mind. So this structured information is called a message. So in the classroom, teacher select or lecturer select the message to you. For example, by today's topic is about the communication. Now, in transferring the information, I'm using the channel. It is the media through which communication take place. Selection of the proper channel is very important for effective communication. For example, I'm using the media social. Probably I'm using the videos, and I'm using the PowerPoint and so on. So in classroom, communication is the lecturers use might probably the blackboard, the chalk, oral words, or mic in channel to communicate the message. So this is the process. Okay. Next is, once the message is delivered, the person who received the message we call as a receiver. Alright, receiver is the person who receive or get the message sent from the sender. So the receiver try to understand the information sent by the sender. For example, in classroom, communication between communication students as a receiver. So the receiver, the student, is in doing the process of decoding. It means that it is a process in which receiver decodes the message, or receiver try to understand the message sent by the sender. So receiver is called as a decoder. And the last one we call as a feedback. Feedback, it is answer or reply given by the receiver to send the message, is called a feedback. Feedback ends the communication and it start again. Feedback might probably a positive or negative, and it's very important link in the communication process. In classroom, communication, the student question or answer are the feedback. For example, I'm talking to you, I'm asking you, do you have any question? So some students are raising up the hand and they ask the question, and this is the feedback. It shows that you understand what the communication process is all about. Okay. All right. Next. And you can see, you can go to Google and you can find the process of communication, and this is popular all over the world. Okay. All right. For example, definition of business. We're talking about business communication. In the context of in our life. For example, in the business communication world, communication which relates to the business function and activities is also known as business communication. You are selling the product. The seller selling the product to the customer buys the product, the customer gives the feedback about the product. This is business function and activities, and it also known as a business communication. For example, shopkeepers need some good for his store. He communicate with the person or the whole shop. Might probably the advertisement by company for recruitment of employee, or farmers sell the cultivated crops in the market, or to the shopkeepers. In all these is called a communication. Okay, class? I hope you understand very well about the communication. In communication, there are few types of communication. You boleh tengok notes ataupun you boleh Google what is the types of communication. Ada yang verbal, ada yang non-verbal, ada yang formal, ada informal, ada oral, ada graphic, ada written, is a body language and so on. So apa benda sahaja, whatever it is, when we try to communicate, when we try to transferring the information, when we are trying to deliver something to the other person, it is a communication. For example, I'm not using a sound, I'm not using my language, but I'm using the graphic, or I'm using the body language, or probably I'm just doing some written to you, and these all the communication. Okay, types of communication. Very simple lah, we boleh tengok nantilah kan. Okay, macam I sebut tadi, verbal communication ni communication which take place with the help of word. is spoken or your written is known as a verbal communication. Oral communication is take place with the help of spoken or oral words is known as oral communication. Student asking the question, or might probably written communication is communication which take place with the help of written word. Is known as a written communication. Students are writing exam in the exam hall is a written communication. You are telling your lecturers that you understand the question very well. You are answering the exam question. This is a written communication. You dengar tak orang menyanyi tepi ni? Tak tahu dah pertunjukan apa kan? Layan. Okay, the non-verbal communication is a communication which take place through body movement, expression, your sound, your signs and symbol without using words is known as a non-verbal communication. For example, bila orang tanya the food is delicious or not, you pun buat macam ni. So kita faham lah. It indicates that the food is good. When you are doing like this, it indicate the food is not good. When you do like this, it means that you have sakit kepala kan, dizziness in your head, or might probably you're doing this, you're showing that your friend is not in a good mood, or your friend is tak betul kan. Nodding head indicates yes. Mereka kata faham tak? You pun so we understand that. Kalau kata you dengar tak? Kita faham. It means this is a non-verbal communication. There is two types of non-verbal communication. There is a body language and also graphic language. So ada benda tu semua. Okay, dan kita tahu juga akan berlaku lah is a formal communication, means that communication which bounds to certain rule, regulation and principle is known as a formal communication. Informal communication is not bound to certain rules. It means that you can speak to, there is no boundary to speak. You can speak anything about anything, it's not authentic communication. And some organization call it as grapevine communication. It means that when with formal communication, it means that communication between staff in a meeting. Informal communication might probably you have a break, so you talking among your friends, it's a social gathering or a communication between friends. For example, now we are talking about GE15. Everybody are talking about this and we are in a formal communication. We don't talk this to your boss in a formal way, but we do talk with our boss in informal communication because it's not about your work, it's about the it's called social gatherings. Macam you selalu jumpa your friends, you are not talking macam you tak minta pun berikan pendapat anda tu, gila lah kan. Kita kata kau rasa macam mana? Dia one is informal communication. Okay, next. Senang je, simple gila benda ni. Sedih lagu sebelah ni. Okay, lepas tu kan bila kita sebut, I dah sebut dalam kelas tentang communication, dia ada vertical, dia ada upward, dia ada diagonal communication. Whereas vertical communication is a communication between of different rank of level is known a vertical communication. It means upward from your boss to the people down you. Downward communication is the lower level person is talking to higher level person is known as a downward communication. High level to downward is downward. The lower level to the higher level of person is called as a upward communication. Diagonal communication, it means that communication which take place in all direction without rank or level is known as a diagonal communication. Okay. Alright, this is very important. Okay, you dengar betul ya. Barriers to communication. Barriers are the disturbance or difficulty in the process of communication, and it affects the free flow of communication. Sometimes we are wondering why the information that we are trying to deliver is not received by the receiver in a way as we want, and why they do not give the good feedback as we wanted it. So why it happened? Because we call it as a barriers to communication. Barriers are the disturbance or difficulty in the process of communication, and it affects the free flow of communication. Apa-apa benda pun yang mengganggu perjalanan communication, disturbance of communication, we call it a barriers. Alright, listen very carefully. There are 4 types of communication barriers: physical barriers, mechanical barriers, psychological barriers, or language or linguistic barriers. Okay, physical barriers is a barrier which is created due to environment elements or personal disability, known as a physical barrier. There is 2 types of physical barrier, which is environmental barrier and physical barrier. For example, is environmental barrier like what we have now, that when I'm teaching you, the person down there is singing the song. Oh, syahdu sekali. This is an environmental barrier. Barrier which create due to time, distance, noise, space and surrounding. Number 2 is physical barriers. For example, is personal disability like illness, dumbness, deafness or any other disability which create the difficulty is in communication is known as physical barriers. For example, a student cannot attend his class if he is ill. It means that this is the physical barriers. Mechanical barriers is a machine-related difficulties or errors is known as mechanical barriers. For example, faulty mic for public speech, light goes off when watching television. Itu lah. Psychological barriers. Psychological barrier ni ada macam-macam. It means that ada yang seseorang tu kepala dia menyebabkan dia tak boleh nak faham. For example, the emotion, the prejudice, the blocked mind, the phobia, the inattentive and so on. I will give you the notes on this so you might read it properly after this. It is one called psychological barriers. For example, number 1 is among the example of psychological barriers is a daydreaming. It means that you are thinking about something which not happening at the time of the moment. Maksudnya you berangan lah kan. When your lecturers are talking to you, your mind is somewhere else. It's mean daydreaming. Emotion like happiness, sadness, overjoy, frustration of someone, it actually creates the barriers in communication. For example, you are too happy. When people talk to you, you are not care anymore because you are too happy. So that means that the emotion, the emotion dominates you, that make you do not understand what people talk to you. It might probably is a phobia, it is a fear or dislike in mind for particular things or person. For example, you don't like that particular person. When the person talk to you, it called a phobia, and you cannot focus on what he's trying to say to you. Might probably the blocked mind. It is a state of mind where you cannot express, always surrounded by negative thoughts. Okay? Alright. Okay, next. Okay. There is one also we call as a language barrier. Language barrier means that menjadi halangan kita because of the language that they use. Might probably the different in language, the technical jargons. Jargon means istilah-istilah tu yang susah orang nak faham. Pronunciation might probably because the influence of mother tongue, which difficult for us to pronounce that word correctly, and it creates the barrier between the sender and also the receiver. Allusion might probably there is a nickname, pet name, pen name of person which is indirect mention of their names. For example, Abdul Kalam is known as Mysore Man of India. Mysore Man is allusion here. It means that istilah yang digunakan itu memberi makna yang berbeza kepada kita. For example kan, like teachers, we call as cikgu kan. Sometimes people say they are using Arabic word mu'alim, mu'alimah, for example. So we do not understand what is actually mu'alim, but mu'alim is we referring to a teacher. So the language barrier could create a barrier in communication. Okay, next. After that, we go to... Okay. What are the principles of effective communication? There is a principle of effective communication. Number one is principle of consistency. It means that whenever person start communication, certain message, objective, policies and procedures, it should be maintained. Sender and receiver both should have consistency in their communication, and without that, communication will be incomplete and will not be successful. You must maintain the conversation so that they have a consistency. Alright? Number two, principle of information. Sender and receiver both have to inform each other about the communication. Process of telling, listening and understanding should be there. Principle of time element. Sender and receiver should consider time factor in their communication. Jadi untuk menjadikan kita punya komunikasi ini berkesan, kita kena ada konsistensi, kita kena memikirkan tentang information kita tu mesti dua-dua faham. Yang ketiga, kena tengok juga mana masa yang sesuai untuk masing-masing. Right time respond and also reply will lead to effective communication. Okay, next one is principle of flexibility, and also the last one is principle of feedback. Okay, I will give you the notes of in YouTube, and I just repeating my video is just repeating what the YouTube is saying. So you can refer to the YouTube, and the YouTube is about 45 minutes 26 seconds, and please look into it. And also my video is also just repeating what the video is all about. Okay, class untuk section 1 and section 2, what you have to do today, you have to submit by today. I nak you buat one TikTok. Okay, TikTok. I tak tahu bagaimana you nak berhubung dengan kawan-kawan you. You kena menggunakan kreatifan you. You kena membincangkan. You kena buat TikTok tentang barriers of communication. Macam mana you nak buat? Apa benda barriers yang you nak upload? Apa benda barriers yang you nak perkatakan is up to you. There's a lot of barriers. It's environmental barriers, language barriers, and also that. Please refer to the notes or please refer to the internet. You Google what is the barriers of communication. So you are doing the TikTok on the barriers of communication. Okay, class, please submit to me before 12 PM. Sebelum 12 malam ini. Okay. Itu untuk grup yang hari Rabu. Untuk grup hari Khamis juga kena buat tugasan yang sama, dan ini nota yang I cakap ini untuk nota you esok, dan tugasan you kena buat dan you kena submit juga ke I sebelum 12 malam esok. Okay, with that, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.